You are Locked On Warriors POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports San Francisco on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yo, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On Warriors POSTCAST. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel. You may know me as the former producer for the Murph and Mac Morning Show on KNBR. And tonight, the Warriors didn't have Steph, they didn't have Draymond, and they didn't have Jonathan Kuminga, but got huge contributions from Dennis the Menace Schröder and Brandin Podziemski on their way to a 114-103 win over the Utah Jazz at Chase Center. And this was by far the best game Dennis Schröder has played as a Warrior. He led the team with 23 points despite exiting this game with a scary-looking leg injury, came back and looked solid after that injury too. Brandin Podziemski pitched in 20 points off the bench and has looked very, very good since returning from injury. Is he all the way back? But this was more than just two guys leading the team with a Herculean effort. It was a total team win as the entire squad pitched in to win all of the hustle plays really all night long. But still, this team struggled to close out the Jazz in the fourth quarter and is still clearly missing a big piece down low. We'll talk about all of this. We'll break it all down. But first, I want to thank all of you for watching us on the Locked On Sports San Francisco YouTube channel. Please, if you aren't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button right now. Thanks also for listening on the Locked On Warriors podcast feed and making us your first listen following these Warriors games. Make sure to check out the Locked On Warriors Daily Show for more in-depth coverage. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. And the Warriors in this one started out sluggish, man. They were down 10 to the Jazz early on. It just did not look super great offensively. Defensively, the Jazz were the Warriors were bailing them out, I thought, with bad shots. But they kind of held their own in that first quarter, responded with a run of their own, and by the end of that first quarter, the Warriors had tied this game. And going into the second, the Warriors really started to pull away, opened up a 15-point lead, and they did this through really all the hustle plays, not committing a lot of turnovers and capitalizing on the Utah turnovers. They were leading the points off of turnovers by double digits, and they were holding the Jazz below 30% from the three-point line, which is something that they haven't done against a lot of opponents in the month of January. They have not been very good defensively. Bottom half in the NBA in opponent three-point percentage and opponent shooting percentage from the field in general. And the Warriors themselves shot 34% from three. And while that's not, anything that you're going to write home about, without Steph, without Kuminga and Draymond to kind of orchestrate the offense, this is a solid thing, because we have seen this team be absolutely putrid without Steph Curry when they're shooting the three ball. And even with Steph in some recent games, they've been really, really bad shooting the three. So you like that Brandin Podziemski was made four three-point shots, 4 of 11, not the worst three-point shooting percentage in the world. Dennis Schröder also 5 of 13. You like that those guys kind of got it going. And another guy that we got to talk about, Moses Moody. This guy has been so consistent for the Warriors over this recent stretch of games, last 7 or 8 games. Tonight, another very consistent 15 points on 4 of 9 shooting and 3 of 6 from three-point land for Moses Moody. So he has continued to give the Warriors this very consistent contribution, more minutes for Moody tonight as he got the start with all the various injuries the Warriors are dealing with. So paid off for the Warriors. I mean, Steve Kerr rewarding Moses Moody with this starting spot tonight. And I think that it paid dividends. And Moody's been really good for the Warriors lately. He's a guy that this fan base has like almost a cult following of, and everyone wants to see Moody get more minutes. I don't think anybody dislikes Moses Moody in this fan base, and it's about time that he's honestly getting some more run when the Warriors are this undermanned. I don't know how Moody hasn't really gotten more run this season with the way that the roster is shaken out and with all the injuries, but hey, it's about time that Moody's getting some consistent run out there. In the third quarter, the Jazz kind of, it felt like more of the same. The Warriors kind of continued to hang around that 10-point lead, that keep that double-digit lead going. But then in the fourth, things started to turn after the Warriors were getting pretty much whatever they wanted in that third quarter offensively, getting to the rim pretty easily, pretty often in that fourth quarter. Warriors not able to really get inside, and the Warriors started taking a lot of jump shots that were just not very good. They almost shot themselves entirely out of this game. I mean, the Jazz made this a 1-point game about midway through the fourth quarter, and thankfully the Warriors went on a nice little run at the end there. It was a 13-3 run for the Jazz in the middle of that fourth quarter that really narrowed this game down. But the Warriors respond with an 11-2 run of their own and do eventually close out the Utah Jazz. Brandin Podziemski had a nice little dagger three to kind of end the Utah Jazz comeback and give the Warriors this double-digit win at home, which, it's winning over the Jazz. You're not going to get too high about this, but if you had lost this game, it would have turned this 9-game stretch where they're playing all their games in California, 8 of them at home, would have turned that into, kind of you're starting to think about this being a losing stretch instead of maybe you're holding on to be able to finish this stretch out 500 despite all the injuries. And the Warriors had to have this game to be able to have that still on the table because their schedule coming up is not very favorable over the next couple of days. I mean, you get OKC tomorrow night on the back end of the back-to-back. So that's basically a scheduled loss for the Warriors, especially if you're still missing any of these starters that, any of the 3 main players that the Warriors are missing, Kuminga, Steph, and Draymond. You basically got no chance against the Oklahoma City Thunder, even though the Warriors did beat them once earlier this year, which is still shocking to me that the Warriors were able to do that. The Oklahoma City Thunder looked just absolutely like world beaters. I think that team has got to be the odds-on favorite to win the NBA championship right now. They're for sure my pick to win the NBA championship at this point in the season. But for tonight, that's for tomorrow. We can live with the Warriors win tonight and be happy about it for the next less than 24 hours until the Warriors get their clocks cleaned tomorrow night. But for tonight, Dennis Schröder, man, this guy has been so bad since he came to the Warriors, and tonight he really, really delivered and stepped up when the Warriors need it most. I mean, they just had no scoring when Steph is not on the court, or when he's on the court and he's having an off night. But for the Warriors tonight, Dennis Schröder leads the team with 23 points, his most as a Golden State Warrior. He went 8 of 20 from the field, 34 minutes, played a ton of minutes despite leaving this game with an injury where he kind of drove the lane and kind of came down awkwardly on that left leg. Looked like maybe he rolled the ankle. The knee also kind of looked like it buckled in a weird way. He landed awkwardly and it did not look good. He could not really get up on his own. Warriors had to intentionally foul so that they could stop the clock or stop the play and get Schröder subbed out because he was driving in pain down on the floor. And then he had to be helped off. He had to be lifted up by Warriors assistants and carried into the locker room. So that really looked bad. And you were kind of sitting there with bated breath thinking the Warriors are going to lose yet another key piece of this team. I mean, it just seems like that backup point guard position just cannot stay healthy for the Warriors this season. But thankfully, Dennis Schröder made it just somehow a miraculous recovery. I mean, I'm not going to say it was Paul Pierce-esque, but, along those lines. And he returned in the second half, and man, he immediately started hitting threes, getting back into the lane and getting layups to go. This guy was doing everything for the Warriors tonight. He only had 2 turnovers. He had 3 steals, 4 assists, also pitched in 5 rebounds. So Schröder really, really did a great job for the Dubs tonight. And he provided us with some entertainment, man. I mean, Colin Sexton, who has been throughout his career a pretty good player against the Warriors. He's averaging over 20 points against the Dubs in his career. But tonight he had 30. And he and Schröder were sparring back and forth in this one, man. They were jawing. At one point, Colin Sexton drove the lane and kind of inadvertently swiped Dennis Schröder in the face, kind of got him in the eye a little bit. And Schröder, after that point, looked mad, looked angry, looked like he was ready to go toe-to-toe with this guy. And they were, jawing back and forth all day. And, I mean, they were, trading buckets. And it was fun to kind of watch that out here. And Colin Sexton's, flexing on people. Bob Fitzgerald got all mad because Colin Sexton made a tough layup inside and started flexing while the Jazz were down 8. And I mean, if you're the Utah Jazz and you're 10-35, go ahead and flex when you're down 8. That's what Kalena Azubuike was telling Bob too on the broadcast there. Sometimes Warriors games lately, to me, feel a little bit like Bob Fitzgerald podcast with Kalena Azubuike pitching in his 2 cents every now and again while there's a Warriors game going on in the background. Bob, I mean, I love Fitz, but sometimes these tangents he goes on feel a little bit like my tangents that I go on when anybody is trying to get me to get through one coherent story in my personal life. But the Warriors tonight, man, just everybody pitched in. It wasn't just Schröder. Like Schröder had a great game in that, sparring with Colin Sexton was entertaining, but it was really everybody. I mean, we should say, I want to be nice, but it was really everybody but Buddy Hield. And Buddy Hield, man, again, with the worst plus minus on the team, a -12, and only 2 points on 1 of 7 shooting, 0 for 4 from 3. And some of those shots, man, it just looked just really out of rhythm. I mean, it wasn't like he was, completely airballing shots. He had one, his last 3, I think, almost went in and kind of rolled around the rim and just didn't get that shooter's roll. But he just looks out of sorts. He looks out of rhythm. It doesn't look like his timing is right out there. So he's kind of the only guy who, if you're looking for a low point in tonight's game, was probably Buddy Hield. But everybody else really pitched in. Even Quentin Post played another 16 minutes tonight. GP2, everybody who played except for Trace Jackson Davis pitched in double-digit minutes for the Warriors tonight. And it was, very, very, very solid effort doing all of the little things. The turnovers, the points off turnovers were absolutely massive. So were the second chance points. And just in general, the turnover margin was very much so in favor of the Warriors. Jazz committed 15 turnovers, Warriors only 9. How did they get there? How did they do this? We'll tell you that next on the Locked On Warriors postcast. Today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 games, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play matter more than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and see the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a bet, just a $5 bet, and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's just the icing on the cake. Download the app or head over to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score that $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. Welcome back to the Locked On Warriors postcast. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel. Tonight, the Warriors pull one out over the Utah Jazz. They did not have Steph. They did not have Draymond. They did not have Jonathan Kuminga, but they had Dennis Schröder. They had Brandin Podziemski and his 20-plus points, his 20 points tonight, and all the other things he pitched in. I think he is finally fully back, and we'll get to that next. But first, the Warriors and all of their hustle plays tonight really made the difference in this game, man. And everybody was really pitching in on the hustle plays, but there's one guy who I think really is setting the tone for that, and that is Guy Santos. Just this guy plays a million miles an hour all the time. There was a play in the second half where there was a loose ball, and Guy just, sprints ahead of Keontae George, somehow cuts him off, gets to the ball first, gets to the spot first. And Keontae George, he was running pretty quick too. He thought he had a straight path to the ball, and all of a sudden, here comes Guy Santos just impeding his progress. But Guy got there first, got the position, and Keontae George just ran into him full speed, and Guy drew the foul. And it might seem like just a small moment in this game, but it's plays like that just swing momentum so heavily back towards the Warriors, and they don't really show up in the box score. Nothing like that is, it's a foul for Keontae George, but there's no positive thing that you're seeing in the box score for Guy Santos from a play like that. But man, this guy was everywhere. Another 7 boards for him, and guess what? 4 of them were offensive rebounds. This guy just really sets the tone for the Warriors, and you can see that it's reflected in his plus minus, plus 25, plus minus, leading the team. He also gave you some very good defense, man. When the Jazz were kind of getting to the line or getting to the hole over and over again, they were able to drive that lane. Guy Santos kind of stepped back and said, "Okay, shoot the ball," and he made some smart, heady defensive plays and started making, baiting guys like Colin Sexton, who were able to get inside all night long and do damage to the Warriors in the paint. He was kind of forcing them to take some threes, take some jumpers, and he wasn't making them when Guy was guarding him. So I really like what we saw from Guy Santos, getting to the line a little bit too, 3 of 4 on his free throws. He also had a steal. So, you see all of the things that he pitches in. 7 points, He had a big dunk in that final, closing minutes of that fourth quarter on the dump off from Podziemski. I really love what I see from this guy. I mean, Guy has been such a phenomenal addition to this Warriors rotation. I mean, he's been hitting threes for the most part. He did not hit one tonight, but he has been hitting them at a pretty consistent clip for the Warriors since he's been getting this more, uptick in playing time. And just the vibes of a Guy Santos. Like, this guy looks like he just enjoys the grind, enjoys the hustle. He enjoys, the sweat and the getting it out of the mud. And I just love watching guys like that play basketball. It is so fun to see a guy play just with all heart. Like, Guy Santos might not be the most talented guy on this Warriors roster, but man, seeing guys like him and Kevon Looney who just play with so much heart and passion and play with their brain. Like, they're not just playing a million miles an hour out of control like some of the guys we've seen come through here in the past. I think of Kelly Oubre immediately when I think of a guy like that who just really couldn't get the brain to catch up with the body. But Guy Santos, man, he is making heady plays. He is giving you hustle minutes, and it's infectious, man. It's contagious in the energy, the joy that he plays with. You hear Steph talk about that a lot, saying that the Warriors don't have this joy, and Guy Santos really bringing you that joy and in just kind of infusing this Warriors team with some life. I mean, they really have needed some kind of infusion since with all these injuries, and it's just been a very boring team to watch most nights, quite frankly. And Guy Santos gives you something to kind of watch for. It gives you something to smile about when the Warriors are kind of not doing so great this season and they're hovering around 500. You get some, you want some excitement. You don't want it. The worst thing you can be is be mediocre and boring. If you're mediocre and like kind of fun, like you can sort of live with that for a little bit. I mean, you don't want the Warriors to go back to it's a great timeout type of vibes, but you want to see something. You want to be entertained, right? That's why we watch the game. That's why we love the game of basketball, because it's so entertaining. It's the ultimate display of athleticism amongst all the major sports, in my opinion. Like, you have the peak athletes of the world playing this game, and the most finely tuned athletes in this country. And it's so fun when you get to see a guy who might not be able to measure up as an athlete to some of these other, top tier athletes, but they're all heart. And Guy Santos is one of those dudes. And I just love watching this guy play basketball. We also got to shout out Moses Moody, because this guy, as we just talked about a little bit earlier on in the show, he's been playing great basketball for the Warriors. And just as much as Guy is contributing in the energy department, I think Moses Moody is contributing in like the winning plays department. I never see this guy make the wrong move with the basketball. No turnovers tonight in 27 minutes, 4 of 9 shooting, and 15 points. I mean, 15 points on 9 shots, that you'll take that from a rotation player any day, and 3 of 6 from the 3-point line. I mean, Moses Moody really pitching in some solid winning minutes for the Warriors. And a lot of these shots came in moments where the Jazz would start to get some momentum, and Moses Moody would just go out there cool, calm, and collected, just do his thing, score some points, and just kind of quell that uprising from the Utah Jazz. Now, in 7 consecutive games, he has now scored in double figures, dating back to January the 15th, the middle of this month, against Minnesota. So he's really given the Warriors something that you can rely on lately. And I think this just bodes more for the case to give Moses Moody more minutes. I mean, this guy, what more do you want? I mean, he's been, tonight, another 15 points. And as I said, double-digit points in his last 7 games for the Warriors. Over that stretch, he's shooting 50% from the field. And from 3-point line, he's shooting 46.3%. So you want this guy out there. You frankly need his shooting at this point, because the Warriors just have nothing else going for them. I mean, Buddy Hield is not the guy that you were hoping that he was going to be. Let Moses Moody fill that role. He plays excellent defense. He's always around the ball. He's always making the right play with the basketball in his hands. I want more from Moses Moody. I want to see this guy on the court as often as possible right now, especially with the Warriors so banged up, man. I mean, if in tomorrow night, I mean, who knows? Maybe tomorrow night's the Moses Moody game where we've had the Lindy Waters game, we've had the Buddy Hield game, we've now had the Dennis Schröder game, we've had an Andrew Wiggins game. I think it's time for a Moses Moody game. I think an eruption from Moody would be great to see. But one guy who has been also erupting on this Warriors offense over the last 3 games, specifically since he returned from injury, is Brandin Podziemski, the Warriors guard who was linked to all these trade rumors for Lauri Markkanen and was just really catching a ton of flack from Warriors fans this season, as he just was not having the season we expected him to have. Wasn't living up to those expectations. Looked like he was regressing in year 2. These last 3 games, finally looks healthy. Finally looks like he's the guy that the Warriors thought he was going to be going into this season. Brandin Podziemski, he is all the way back. We will break that down next on the Locked On Warriors postcast. Welcome back to the Locked On Warriors postcast. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel. The Warriors tonight win 114-103 over the Utah Jazz and had a ton of bench points. Again, 50-plus bench points for the Warriors tonight. And led by Moses Moody started tonight, led by Brandin Podziemski. 20 points off the bench for Brandin Podziemski. 6 of 6 from the free throw line. He hit 4 threes as well. He also gave you 7 boards and 6 assists. I mean, this guy was really doing everything. He gave the Warriors also a very important 3 at the end of this game to bury the Utah Jazz and put any chance of a comeback to bed. Played 32 minutes, and this is his 3rd game back from injury, where he missed, I think, like 12 games. And he just, before then, really never really looked healthy to start the year. Remember, he started with that mask on his face and with the broken nose, and it seemed like as soon as that mask came off, he would get hit in the face damn near every single game. He was leading the NBA in fist to the nose connections, I guess. I mean, but in these last 3 games, double digits all 3 games, and he's gotten better and better each one. Against the Bulls, 21 minutes, 10 points. Against the Lakers, 24 minutes, 17 points. And now tonight against the Jazz, 32 minutes, 20 points. He turned in, his most rebounds, most assists, most points since he has come back from injury. He really has been playing super well in these last 3 games. He's shooting over 50% from the field in that time, shooting over 40% from 3 in that time. And this is what you thought you were going to get from Brandin Podziemski when, the Warriors decided not to pull the trigger on that trade for Lauri Markkanen in the offseason, because they wanted this guy to kind of see what he could develop into, to see if there was really something there. I mean, he had such a unexpectedly good rookie year. And I think some people in the organization thought he had that in him, but I think a lot of people from the outside, he doesn't look like a prototypical point guard. He doesn't play like a prototypical point guard. He doesn't really play like a prototypical shooting guard either. He just makes winning plays. All the charges he draws, all the little things that he does. He plays great defense and just seems to, have just enough offensively to be a threat. And you've seen since he's been back, the 3-point ball has really been the difference, because early in the season, Brandin Podziemski could not buy a jumper. And this guy, when he's not shooting the ball with any kind of consistency, and you can just sag off of him and, guard the hole. He's not going to be able to shoot over taller defenders. He doesn't have like the same crafty finishing moves that a guy like Steph has to be able to finish around these bigger guys. He's got like a nice little floater, but he's not going to like go give you a crazy up and under or a nice, reverse that's just beating all the bigs down low on the block. He has to have a shot to draw that interior defense out to him. When he's not hitting that jumper, when teams don't have to respect him shooting that 3 ball, it really impacts what this guy can do offensively. So seeing Brandin Podziemski hit this 3-point ball at an over 40% rate is a very good sign for the Warriors. And although you're not going to play the Utah Jazz every single night, again, 20 points off the bench is very, very, very good. This guy we haven't really seen this too much from Pods this year. So I think that he looks all the way back. Just watching his body movements out there on the court, watching what he's able to do with the ball in his hand now, and just watching the shot. Like, the shot looks better, even though his shot just still looks so weird to me. It's super hierarchy, super rainbowy, but just the form just looks funky to me sometimes. But hey, it's starting to fall again for him. So if that can continue to go, then that will be a big lift for this Warriors team. I think that Brandin Podziemski is a massive, massive, massive piece for this Warriors team going forward, because, again, you're probably not going to be a playoff team at this point. You have to accept that the Warriors are just a very mediocre team. But one wrinkle that has developed in these last couple of days, well, actually two little wrinkles, is one, the Jimmy Butler price has come down for the Miami Heat. The Warriors are reportedly back in the mix for discussions to bring Jimmy Butler to the Bay from South Beach. And also, you have the reports that De'Aaron Fox is not happy in Sacramento and that he wants to be traded potentially before this trade deadline. And if that happens, I mean, I see no world in which the Kings are able to make the playoffs or even the play-in without De'Aaron Fox. I mean, if the Kings get rid of De'Aaron Fox, at least for this season, until they kind of recoup that franchise from the picks that they'll inevitably get for him, they're going to fall off a cliff. And that's not, I mean, De'Aaron Fox has been so fun, that rivalry that's, budding with the Warriors. I hope he stays a King, but who knows? It doesn't really look like that's going to happen right now, even though the Kings have been playing good basketball as of late. But also the Jimmy Butler thing. So if they do get rid of De'Aaron Fox, the Kings are 10th right now, and the Warriors are 11th in the standings in the West. So I fully expect the Warriors to be able to overtake the Kings if they do get rid of De'Aaron Fox. And if you go get Jimmy Butler, maybe that is just that little glimmer of hope is enough to entice this front office to do something, to pull the trigger on that, especially if the asking prices come down. If there's no Jonathan Kuminga involved, do you pull the trigger on a Jimmy Butler deal? If, say, you have to give up Andrew Wiggins and let's throw in a GP2 to make the salaries work, I mean, would you do that? Would you pull that trigger on that trade? I mean, maybe you got to throw in another piece or two to make this work, but I think you do, because if it's just giving up Wiggins, I know Wiggs had 19 points tonight, but again, 19 points on 5 of 17 shooting, not the most efficient night. You had a plus 12, plus minus. I mean, but Wiggins, again, not very aggressive, not very assertive, just leaves you wanting more every night. Even when he has these games where, you have kind of a quiet 19 points, he just leaves you wanting more and more and more from him. He's seldomly is he that guy that we saw in the 2022 NBA Finals, but that's the guy that the Warriors need, and he just isn't that guy right now. So maybe if you're getting rid of him and just a couple other role players, I do love me some GP2. I would hate for him to be the guy to go, but I don't think you either got to give up him or Looney or Buddy Hield to make that salary match. And I don't want to give up Looney. I don't think that the Heat really want Buddy Hield, nor do I think Buddy Hield's really going to be too enticing for any team in the NBA right now with the way that he's been playing. So GP2 is probably the guy that Miami would want. And if you're already not having to give up Kuminga to get him, would you do it for Wiggins and GP2? I say if that's the price for Jimmy Butler, that you pull the trigger on that, and maybe the Warriors can get it done without having to throw in if you got to throw in second round picks, that's fine. But again, I wouldn't want to throw in a first round pick. I wouldn't want to throw in Jonathan Kuminga. Jimmy Butler's 36 years old. You don't know really how long this guy's going to be here for in the Warriors organization. Do not mortgage the future to go get this guy and put him on a very average team, injury-riddled team with aging superstars. I mean, it would be fun to see what the big three could do, Jimmy Butler and Steph and Draymond, and then you throw in Kuminga in the mix. That's kind of I kind of want to see what that group can do in the playoffs. And maybe that's just enough to get them out of the play-in and into the playoffs, not record-wise leading into the postseason, but maybe it's enough to get them into the 9th seed, the 10th seed, and maybe they'll have enough firepower to win in that play-in spot and get into the real NBA playoffs. It would be interesting to see, but it's not worth mortgaging the future for. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, the Warriors kind of given a little bit of life here because the Kings are looking at trading De'Aaron Fox. And in order to stay afloat, you have to continue to hover around 500 during this little home stretch, this 9-game stand in California, and until Jonathan Kuminga comes back, until you can get a little bit more healthy. Once Kuminga comes back, hopefully he'll be fully ready to go, and you can kind of have someone to lean on every single night as the guy who will carry the load offensively, instead of having to pray and hope for guys like Dennis Schröder to score 20-plus points or Brandin Podziemski off the bench. I mean, the Warriors are getting a lot of contributions from a lot of different guys right now, and they're able to just stay right around 500. But again, it's a win over the Jazz. Tomorrow night, things get a lot tougher as the Oklahoma City Thunder come to town. The Warriors play on the back end of a back-to-back. Still very banged up. We'll see who plays tomorrow night for the Warriors. But, I mean, tonight, we can at least enjoy this one for now, right? 114-103 win for the Warriors. Back to over 500 record at home, 13-12 at home, 23-23 on the season. That's all the time that we got for you guys today. We'll be coming to you live tomorrow night as the Warriors take on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Peace.